Let's jump in. After a successful first 100 days in office, President Biden announced that America is ready to get back on that dead horse's saddle.
Now, after just 100 days, I can report to the nation, America is on the move again.
The president went on to promise free college, free childcare, and low-price health care, showing his age by forgetting what country he's the president of.
Congresswoman, you were in the room. Describe the mood. Was the sight of two women behind Biden invigorating enough to keep you awake during the bits where he talked?
You know, it was absolutely historic, and my heart was really full to see the first woman Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and the first woman Vice President sitting behind President Biden, who really laid out the successes that he's had in his first 100 days.
Yes, it was good to have two strong women there to grab him in case he wandered off. Now, let's discuss the president's touchdown dance at the 50-yard line to celebrate his administration's COVID response. Here he is taunting the new variants.
After I promised we'd get 100 million COVID-19 vaccine shots into people's arms in 100 days, we will have provided over 220 million COVID shots in those 100 days.
Okay, remember, y'all, we are not completely out of the woods until Fauci makes his 100 millionth TV appearance. Now, Congresswoman, has any president in our nation's history achieved something as impressive as convincing a fraction of Americans to take a life-saving shot?
Given that we have had nearly 500,000 Americans die of COVID-19, making sure that we get shots in arms, that we have a president who leaned into that podium, talked about how important it is that we get the vaccine. That's an example that I want our president and leaders across this country to set every single day.
But it needs to be said, Biden missed a real opportunity to announce that we will now arm mass shooters with vaccine guns, solving two problems at once.
It could work.
I'm not taking the vaccine, even if everybody in my family, including me privately, absolutely got the vaccine.
Biden walks on dangerous ground. If he continues to exceed expectations, Americans might believe they can have even the slightest expectations. That's when the cannibalism starts.
Well, you know,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Congresswoman.
You were coming out against cannibalism?
I'm definitely against cannibalism, and definitely against people who say that they don't want to take the vaccine, because we need to make sure that we're looking out for one another, and we need to make sure that people can get back to work, that we can get this economy back on track.
Well, you know, that cannibalism line is going to end up an attack ad on you, but the question remains, I know this vaccination means we can go out, but do we have to? That is
Absolutely
a lot
not,
of people
Junior,
are asking
don't
that
worry.
all around the country.
Now, moving on, President Biden pitched the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to Republicans still reluctant to lose their community engagement tanks.
We have to come together to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the people they serve, to root out systemic racism in our criminal justice system, and to enact police reform in George Floyd's name that passed the House already.
Now, how are senators supposed to vote on this bill when private prisons haven't had nearly enough time to weigh in?
Although many of the bill's reforms failed communities in the past, doubling down on these strategies has a real shot of making them work this time.
Congresswoman, are Republicans worried about being on the wrong side of history if state-sanctioned street slaughter becomes culturally acceptable in a couple of years?
Well, if you're talking about shots, we need to stop the shots that come from the guns of police, that comes from the guns of criminals, and the shots we need to get started increasing are shots in arms, so we can keep people safe and make sure that they don't get COVID.
I don't think Junior is going to be able to keep track of that at all. Did you get that, Junior?
No, not even the beginning of the first part.
You know, when it comes to policing, we need a bipartisan compromise here. If police units agreed that all their SWAT trucks with missile mounts will go electric by 2040, that's a win for everyone.
Hold on. Hold on. This bill goes way too far and prevents police from doing their jobs of fighting the epidemic of dementia-addled citizens with arms still in their sockets.
Either way, it's an outrage. Now, when our Tuning Out special coverage returns, we'll cover Congressman Matt Gaetz sneaking in a 17-year-old date wearing a bad Dianne Feinstein costume.
Plus, sensing COVID fading, Dr. Fauci makes one last desperate bid for the nation's attention.
We'll be back after these great moments in Bullshit Promises.
You work 40 hours a week and you've got a child in the house, you will no longer be in poverty.
I have a message for the brave and oppressed people of Iraq. your enemy is ruling your country. The day he and his regime are removed from power will be the day of your liberation.
I have ordered the closing of the detention center at Guantanamo Bay. By the end of next year, our war in Afghanistan will be over.
We are coordinating with the Chinese government and working closely together on the coronavirus outbreak. My administration will take all necessary steps to safeguard our citizens from this threat.
Welcome back. Over the break, Senator Joe Manchin sent Biden his Amazon wish list if he wants any of Biden's policies to have a chance in hell. Now, on the Afghan withdrawal, the president promised that ending the 2-decade war will not threaten Americans' critical need for night vision videos of sultry missiles flying out of big pipes.
The threat has evolved way beyond Afghanistan. We have to remain vigilant against the threats to the United States wherever they come from. Al-Qaeda and ISIS are in Yemen, Syria, Somalia.
That's very smart. Sometimes you have to lose an enemy to gain 14 enemies. Congresswoman, not sure this is a smart move for Biden. Without a war in Afghanistan, we don't really need a president, do we?
Oh, we most definitely need a president who can reestablish the leadership that we have always led in the throughout the world. The last thing we need to be doing is continuing an endless war, really whose mission we've mostly accomplished. I thought it was really an incredibly salient point that President Biden made tonight, is that this is the first war in which you have the children of people who first engaged in the war are now also engaged in that war.
Exactly. So thanks to Biden, I'll never get to fight my dad in Afghanistan.
Americans are tired of this war, which is why it's time to redefine it so we can keep waging it.
Honestly, I'm not too worried. We'll find some other war.
Oh, always the optimist there, Junior.
Literally such a Scorpio, Junior. Now, moving on to gun control. Biden repeated his call for congressional action to tighten background checks with the stern but polite tone of a cop asking a white shooter to please put his hands up.
We need more Senate Republicans to join the overwhelming majority of Democratic colleagues and close the loopholes required in background check purchases of guns. We need a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And don't tell me it can't be done. We did it before and it worked.
It might be tough to get Republicans on board with this legislation considering how many possess weapons that were intercepted by Capitol Security.
That's a big pile.
Yes, thank you. Now, Congresswoman, couldn't this issue have been lumped in with the American Families Plan since so many Americans seem to consider their guns as important as their human family?
It was important for the president to single this issue out and also call out Republicans who have refused to do what the overwhelming majority of Americans want us to do, which is to close the background check loopholes. Make sure that we can keep dangerous weapons out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them, and ensure that you can go to everyday places like school and the movies and food shopping and live your life.
Listen, the most fun part of having a gun is the shopping experience. You can't interrupt that with a bunch of questions like, have you shot someone before?
I think it was a bad choice to bring up loopholes, one of the more inherently fun and silly things that can get you killed in America.
Sorry to jump in. You go to the movies every day?